Dave. So you're going to increase my FICO score. We've talked a little bit about closing accounts out. Tell me how to add good credit. Tell me about that.
Okay. Well, people seem to instinctively know, especially after a credit disaster, that they need to add good credit to their credit reports in order for the scores to go up.
Mm-hmm.
But about 9.5 out of 10 times, people open the accounts that actually drop their credit scores for many months.
Wow.
9 months, 24 months, okay? And it can take 9 to 24 months just to recover the point score loss. This is particularly true after a credit disaster because people want to rebuild their credit. They think that this is the only credit available to them and they make the wrong choices. So years later, 3, 4, 5, even 6 years later, their credit scores are still in the high 500s, low 600s, and they wonder why. You know, I've paid these accounts perfectly for 3, 4, 5 years later after the bankruptcy, and their scores are still low. Well, they picked the wrong credit. So yes, the scores will go up after 9 to 24 months, but then they don't go as high as they should. So those accounts, once they've gotten older, are still holding down the scores from what they should be. So there's only 1 or 2 new account types that will actually raise credit scores. So I divide the adding good credit into what I call Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. People instinctively open Plan D. Okay, so Plan A gets the fastest results. Typically 3 to 8 weeks, the FICO scores will be 30 to 120 points higher. It just depends on what's on the rest of the credit report. Plan B is a little slower, 3, 4 months. Okay, the person has to have better credit to do Plan B at all. Okay, so sometimes starting Plan B is delayed once we handle other stuff on the credit.
Got it.
Plan C is what maybe 4 or 5% of Americans actually pick compared to the 9.5 out of 10 who pick the wrong things. But it drops scores for a couple of months and then they rise faster than Plan D. Now Plan D might be already done by the person or it might be the only tool available. So we're looking at 9, 12 months of kind of pumping up the credit reports. Like if you think of a water pump, I add some juice or I add some water to the tactic so that instead of dropping scores for 9 to 24 months, that the new account hits the credit, the scores drop, like on the graphic, okay?
Right.
And then we pump up the scores. But it takes the consumer some time and some effort to actually do it. That's why it's the last tactic.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you've spoken before about what some of these sort of more unethical companies are doing, and how the credit reporting agencies have kind of come in with these counter tactics. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Years ago, during the real estate boom of the mid-2000s, companies sprang up around the country selling credit from one stranger to another. And the tactic worked. But what creditors and mortgage lenders realized was that they were looking at false credit scores, not actually earned by the person whose credit report they were looking at, okay? So TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, this is my theory because it's the only way it can actually happen. These 3 major credit reporting agencies asked FICO for a slight modification of the FICO software, okay, to screen out as many of these falsely high credit scores as possible. And here we are, we're not too far after the new year right now, and just last month, Chase, a major credit card issuer, made changes to how people can use their credit, even for family members. So we're sorting through that as we speak right now with 2 clients, and we seem to have a handle on it. I expect it to work.
Okay, so based on some of these other companies are doing, and sometimes a person will feel like, well, I don't really have a lot of option, or maybe I hear what you're saying, Dave, but gosh, it just sounds like such a good, promise. It might be a little shady. I mean, do you have
Well, not only
other
shady,
things?
but expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, $1,000 to $2,500 per credit account
Mm,
is expensive.
right.
Okay. In addition, it's actually fraud,
Mm,
and that's why the credit reporting agencies asked FICO to make the modification, because it's creating a false credit report in the same way. Here's another unethical tactic that I would never advise, is creating a new social security number,
right.
which is also deceptive to
Mm,
a new creditor or lender, and therefore is fraud.
right.
We're talking bank fraud here. So there are definitely tactics that just should not be done.
Right. And based on what I've learned from you is that it's not necessary to do any of these things. You have other alternate
Ethical,
tactics.
moral, legal solutions, yeah.
Right, right, right. Fantastic.